Hi friends, so it's Trisha Roberts here. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. So do you ever have some days where just things don't quite happen the way you'd like them to? You want to have patience and you want to try and be, try and get a message across in a sort of a clear way and a patient way. And, but you just, you've had so many sort of troll-like comments in recent times that about a very important issue that you sort of lose that those soft skills. You've probably heard Steve Grumbine from Real Progressives talking about it. How, he spent from 2006 onwards trying to, from what I understand, 2006 trying to get across MMT to people, and how beneficial that would be to have the understanding of that. And he'll come across people who'll be saying, but, what about the Fed and the Rothschilds? And they go through this list of sort of inane, sort of unresearched, a list of unresearched comments. They're not even listening to what he's saying. And that can be really that can whittle away at you over time. If you've been doing it for 12 years or so, those sort of things can whittle away at people. Because all you're trying to do really is get across, an important message which could benefit others and also, and relieve a lot of suffering, which an understanding of MMT could do, because people could then demand what they deserve and can call out politicians on their nonsense and so forth. But interestingly, there will always be people who like to hang on to ignorant facts that aren't relevant because it suits them, or because they're trolling intentionally, because they don't want, they may either have a business or they may even be paid trolls, who knows. But there are some people who just like going around creating mischief. And, And there seems to be an abundance of those people online. In recent years, even more so. Which makes me wonder, actually, how much of it is actually organized. And I've also had, my share of trolling on this page on Real Progressives, and that's to be expected because I'm talking about veganism. And for some people that creates such cognitive dissonance that they immediately go for the, oh, you're shaming me, you're judging me, you think you're holier than thou, you're an elitist, you're part of a cult, you're a religion. I've been called all sorts of things, including 4-letter words during my live stream, and misogyny and all sorts of things. It's just sort of seems to be the way it is on social media, because in real life, people are not that, they can't be cowardly because they're confronting you, they're actually standing in front of you. But online, people can be as cowardly as they want. And they do, and they are. I mean, it's sort of, it protects bullies, and bullies are always cowards. And when people reach for these sorts of comments, like I was called in one of the live streams recently, what was it, something C-U-N, 4-letter word, effing, C-U-N-T sort of thing. That's what I was called in a live stream when I was just talking about veganism. Oh horror, oh shock, I was asking people to end their participation in the torture and killing of sentient animals. What a terrible thing to be asking people. Imagine not wanting sentient animals to be tortured and murdered for completely unnecessary reasons, because we don't need animal products at all to survive. And I'll say it again, we can easily meet all our nutrition requirements from plants and other non-animal sources. So the only reason we're participating in this torture and killing is because we think animal products taste good. But when I talk about things like climate change, which is very rare that I directly talk about that, and I always preface it with the most important reason to stop using animals is because we don't need to, and because they're sentient and they love life just like we do and they don't want to die. And just because they're another species and they're different doesn't mean they're lesser. They're not property, they're sentient. You know, I preface it and then I go into the reasons. I've talked about the reasons why animal agriculture contributes greatly to climate change. So, you know, I don't think these are small potatoes, what I'm talking about. Just like when Steve Grumbine's talking about MMT. When somebody trolls Steve Grumbine, there'll be a whole bunch of people, including volunteers on the site on Real Progressives, that will jump in and, you know, either reason with that person if they're a reasonable person, which often they are not, or they'll block them. I don't have that luxury because most of the volunteers on this page are not vegan, and a number of them don't seem to have any interest in veganism, which is kind of sad, but that's how it is. But then you get people on the page that are interested in veganism, and then you get some people that will come on and try and shut down the conversation because they don't want to have to think about what they're doing. They don't want to have to address their behavior. They'd much rather say, but what about capitalism? We need to end capitalism. What about plants? That's a funny one. I've heard them all. What about, what was it, overpopulation? Well, okay, quickly now I'm going to address those issues quickly because this is what I heard today when I posted the thing about avoiding meat and dairy is the single most important action you can take to address climate change. Okay, so capitalism, if everybody went vegan, businesses would cater to vegan clients. That's capitalism for you. They look for niches and then they exploit them. So, you know, capitalism, waiting for capitalism to end, that's probably not going to happen. It probably isn't. I don't like capitalism. I think it's inextricably linked with imperialism. It really ends up just a big giant monopoly, and people like Lord Bezos, okay, in Amazon. That's what capitalism is to me. I prefer socialism. I think MMT is a good interim to socialism, like, you know, you address the issues now that are problematic in capitalism, and hopefully everybody will eventually want a socialist sort of a system. There's a lot of socialism already in the world. You know, I mean, there are. People just don't like to acknowledge it when they're talking about capitalism. But anyway, and neoliberalism, it's a big problem. Neoliberalism is a cancer. Okay, so anyway, so when we talk about getting rid of capitalism, you can chew gum and walk at the same time. If you want to work on getting rid of capitalism, you can be vegan and do that. If you say, well, we need to address overpopulation first before we can become vegan, well, I'm sorry, that's sort of really strange because, like, you know, unfortunately, people just keep on breeding. I'm not sure why, because like we're breeding humans into existence on a planet which is just about on the brink. We're just about on the brink of extinction as a species. We really are. I don't like to put hopium into things, and I don't like to talk. You know, even the conservative IPCC report says things are going to be dire at 2 degrees, and I would say it's going to be past 2 degrees. And we've got 12 years to get it together, and governments are not going to do that. Okay, they're just not. They're going the other way, in fact. Okay, but like my point is, capitalism, if you're waiting for capitalism to end before you do anything else, then I find that's just an excuse. Capitalism isn't responsible for animal agriculture. We're responsible for animal agriculture because we create demand for animal products. In any capitalist system, we create demand and businesses meet that demand. They supply. That's why there's factory farming. Factory farming will never ever end, because the more population there is on the planet, the more demand for animal products, and the more businesses will try and animal facilities will try and meet that demand, and they won't care one iota about any sort of animal welfare, which would be considered torture if it was applied to humans. They don't care about animals, they care about economic efficiency. So, factory farming is never going to end while we create demand for animal products. So you can forget about advocating for ending factory farming. That's a complete waste of time. What we need to do is advocate veganism to end all animal use, because it's unnecessary. And if we're against the killing and torture of animals, which a lot of us say we are, then we have to be vegan, because all of what we're eating, wearing and using, it's all unnecessary. We don't need to use animals at all. So all we're doing to these animals is unnecessary. So anyway, what I'm saying is, we create demand, so we're responsible. Capitalism isn't responsible, we are responsible. When it comes to overpopulation, we just keep on breeding. I don't know why. Like I said, we're animals just like other animals, and we seem to not be able to keep a check on that. And 1 million people are being born every 4 days, and that's why factory farming is never going to end. The only way to end factory farming and all forms of animal use is to promote veganism. So suggesting, well, we don't need to worry about veganism, we should be worrying about overpopulation, that's just another excuse. And you can chew gum and walk at the same time. You can be advocating for people not to have children if you want to. I think that's a good idea. But you can be vegan too at the same time. It's not an either-or thing. I'm not sure. I know why people do this, okay? I've seen plenty of people make excuses. They make excuses for all sorts of things. And this is, I'm sorry, when I say I've lost some of my soft skills, I really have, because at this point, with how dire it is, I really think in many ways, just going by the responses of people on social media, we are too stupid to live as a species. Seriously. We're literally staring extinction in the face, and we're taking all these other species with us. And here we are making excuses and arguing about facts about animal agriculture. It's undeniable, the dreadful issues with animal agriculture. Let me just sort of talk about this very, very large survey that was done. So, from this article from the 31st of May 2018, avoiding meat and dairy products is the single biggest way to reduce your environmental impact on the planet, according to the scientists behind the most comprehensive analysis to date of the damage farming does to the planet. The new research shows that without meat and dairy consumption, global farmland use could be reduced by more than 75%, an area equivalent to the US, China, European Union and Australia combined, and still feed the world. Loss of wild areas to agriculture is the leading cause of the current mass extinction of wildlife. The new analysis shows that while meat and dairy provide just 18% of the calories and 37% of protein, it uses the vast majority, 83% of farmland, and produces 60% of agriculture's greenhouse gas emissions. I'll say that again. Other recent research shows 86% of all land mammals are now animals in animal agriculture or humans. The scientists also found that even the very lowest impact meat and dairy products still cause much more environmental harm than the least sustainable vegetable and cereal growing. The study published in the journal Science created a huge data set based on almost 40,000 farms in 119 countries and covering 40 food products that represent 90% of all that is eaten. It assessed the full impact of these foods from farm to fork on land use, climate change emissions, freshwater use and water pollution, eutrophication, and air pollution, acidification. Quote, "A vegan diet is probably the single biggest way to reduce your impact on planet Earth, not just greenhouse gases, but global acidification, eutrophication, land use and water use," end quote, said Joseph Poore at the University of Oxford, UK, who led the research. It is far bigger than cutting down on your flights or buying an electric car, he said, as these only cut greenhouse gas emissions. And it goes on, and it lays out how, even just that fact about how much land would be available if we stopped animal agriculture. And we'd still have plenty of food even if we didn't use those continents. Animal agriculture covers huge, you can see by those statements about it. It uses up huge amounts of land. It's ridiculous. So, and some reports say 51% of greenhouse gases are from animal agriculture. And if you've watched Cowspiracy, you'll see that it's really, really, it's just shocking. When Chris Hedges, the Pulitzer Prize recipient, saw Cowspiracy, he went vegan. Now, I prefer people go vegan for the reasons that animals are sentient and we don't need to use them. But, I'll take that if he went vegan because after seeing Cowspiracy, as long as, he sort of embraces the issue of animals as well, that they're sentient and we have no right to use them, then I'll take that. So, he went vegan after he saw Cowspiracy, and I invite people to see that. When I see people trolling on these sort of sites, I see them, how Steve Grumbine calls people who try and troll, and try and obfuscate the issue of MMT, and he calls them murderers by proxy. Well, I think the same thing when I see people trolling factual things. It's a scientific study, and it's the hugest study to date, and that's what their findings were. That avoiding meat and dairy was the single biggest thing we can do to address this climate disaster that is coming upon us. Now, if you value your taste buds more than your own survival, I'm not kidding when I say that. Because we don't need animal products to survive. We don't. And there's plenty of delicious vegan foods. It's fantastic. And there's millions now of people on the planet that are vegan, but we've got a long way to go. But I'm telling you right now, if it gets to 2 degrees, and it looks like it will, they say 1.5, but it'll get beyond 2 degrees. I'm sorry, but it's going to be beyond 2 degrees. If it goes beyond that, or even 2 degrees, it's disastrous. Okay? I believe it's too late for us, but I'm still willing to keep trying to get people to go vegan, to do what we can in other ways too. Adopt children if you can, instead of having children of your own and that kind of thing. There's all sorts of things we can do, but veganism, being vegan, apart from not participating in the tremendous violence of torturing and killing 1 trillion land and aquatic animals every year. That's 200 million every day, and 180 million of those are tortured their chickens. We don't need this to be happening, and every second there's thousands of animals being tortured and killed. They're sentient animals, just like the dogs and cats we live with, right? Whom we love and consider family members. They're being tortured and murdered for no other reason than taste pleasure, because we don't need animal products to survive. And not only that, it's killing the planet. We are on the brink of extinction. It's the 6th mass extinction. We are an animal, and we are in the 6th mass extinction. We are on the front lines of the 6th mass extinction. And one day, I'm going to leave you with this thought. One day it's going to be so hot, and this is coming very soon. There'll be long periods of drought, and there'll be long heat waves where people won't be able to tolerate it, because you can only tolerate extreme heat for so long, and then your body can't manage it, can't cool down. But one day it'll be so difficult that even plants will not be able to survive. And that means, of course, our precious animal agriculture, those animals will have nothing to eat, so there will be no animal agriculture, and we will have no plants to eat. We will have no plants to eat even. And that means starvation. And if you think that's hyperbole, no, it's not. And so if you value your taste buds more than the planet, more than your, and this is, we're not talking about your children having to go through this or your children's children. We're talking about you and me right now within the next 30 years, maybe 40, but that's probably it. I'm 58 this year, so, you know, I'll probably be quite old by the time the shit really hits the fan. But that'll be fun it won't just suddenly happen. It will happen, and it will happen exponentially. There'll be feedback loops, so it'll probably happen before I'm really old. But some of you, or a number of you out there, are not my age. You're actually like 30 and 20 or whatever. So by the time you're, 50 or 40, or, 50 or 60, this is when this will be happening, and it'll be happening before you actually get to that age. And we'll run out of food because plants will not be able to tolerate the heat, because they won't. And they will die. And that means we will die too. So the outcome, it's not, when people sort of go on and on about, oh, look at the land masses that are going to go underwater. Oh, Manhattan's going to go underwater and all this. That's the least of our worries. You think that's one of the worst things we have to worry about? You think that hurricanes and droughts are the worst things? Well, actually droughts are one of the worst things because we're already experiencing droughts and they're only going to get longer and worse. And rainfall's going to get more scarce. So, there's that saying, shit or get off the pot. Stop wringing your hands about climate change if you're still eating animal products. Now my soft skills are really going, because I'm tired of seeing people wringing their hands about climate change, and when you mention veganism, they don't want to know about it, or they start saying you're holier than thou or whatever. I'm talking about something that's real. It won't matter what kind of system we have, socialism, capitalism, whether people embrace MMT, if we have a fucking dead planet. And we have nothing to eat. I'm just going to read that thing again to you, okay? I want you to take this in. This is, I think, startling. Even just this one fact, okay? The new research shows that without meat and dairy consumption, global farmland use could be reduced by more than 75%, an area equivalent to the US, China, European Union and Australia combined, and still feed the world. Loss of wild areas to agriculture is the leading cause of the current mass extinction of wildlife. Okay, so if we don't have any plants to eat, it's all over. There's no animals. There's no animals to eat if there's no plants to eat. If it gets hot, which it's going to, and the ice caps are going to melt, and then it'll be really bad. If you think it's bad now, wait until that kicks in. And it's coming. So we can either, in this 12 years, we can either keep making excuses and saying, wait until capitalism ends. Or wait until the military-industrial complex stops its wars because they're a great oil consumer. Or just stop having children. Yes, all those things would be great, and you can work on that. But you can be vegan right now. You don't have to wait for governments. You don't have to wait for the military-industrial complex to have a personality change and stop warmongering. You don't have to wait for people to stop having children. But you can educate all those things. Be anti-imperialist. I am. Be an internationalist. Stop seeing things in terms of what's happening in your own country as if that's the only thing that matters. We have to start thinking on an international level. We're a global community. But stop making excuses. Stop saying, oh no, I have this particular illness, like someone said to me recently, pernicious anemia. That's really just lack of vitamin B. You can get that over the counter, or you can get, if you have actual pernicious anemia, which people used to die from once, I think, it's very easily treatable. Vegans need B12, and that's probably the only thing they really need, and that's because we've purified the water and we clean the plants, and so the microbe that's on the plant, which is vitamin B12, is cleaned off the plants, and that's why vegans need B12. But if that's all that we need to do as vegans, God, there's not much, is it? It's a cheap over-the-counter supplement. And pernicious anemia, you just need B12. So what kind of an excuse is that? I get this all the time. Some people invent, I'm not saying that's an invention, and I'm not putting down that person for saying that. I'm sure they probably have something like that, but that's not an excuse. There is no good excuse for not being vegan. There really isn't. We don't need animal products, and they're killing us, by the way. Literally millions of people all over the world are dying from these dreadful illnesses, all sorts of cardiac problems and diabetes and everything, which is directly related to animal products. And a plant-based diet, a balanced plant-based diet, is completely healthy, and it's actually something that our body utilizes. Animal products cause inflammation, literally. That's a fact in our body. We're constantly fighting inflammation when we're eating animal products because they're not supposed to be there. They're really not. We have long intestines for vegetation, digestion. We have molars for crunching, plants. And we have hands for grasping fruit. We're robust frugivores, really, is what we are. Have you seen the dentition on a dog? A dog is supposed to be an omnivore. Have you seen the dentition on a dog? It's really, really different to ours. Yes, we used to eat plants, and we used to eat little tiny insects, I think, once upon a time. But that was sort of, mostly we were eating plants and fruit and stuff like that. It's healthy for us, right? And we're not, we can't prevent harm. There's insects harm and stuff, but we're not killing 200 million plus, and that's a conservative one, 200 million plus animals every day, which is only going to get higher and higher. It's unsustainable, it's unnecessary, it's completely violent, a terrible violence to sentient animals. And we don't need to do it. It's completely unnecessary. So if you believe that it is wrong to torture and kill animals, if you believe it's wrong to inflict unnecessary suffering on animals, just like a dog and cat, right? Then you have to be vegan, because everything, all these animal products and all this animal use is completely unnecessary. Completely. So, if we think it's wrong to do this unnecessarily, inflicting harm and suffering on animals for unnecessary reasons, then we must be vegan. Anyhow, this has been a bit of a rant. I'm sorry. I like I said, just like Steve Grumbine, when he talks about MMT and he gets these constant trolls, at least he has people jumping in and defending his position, right? I don't have that luxury. So if I seem like I'm a bit short with people, it's not because what I'm presenting is actually factual, and and I find trying to talk to people when they just dump their nonsense, often it's just nonsense, and go off. They have no interest in what I want to say to them. And I've been doing this for at least 12 years, and it gets very tedious, particularly when I see imminent human extinction and every other species extinction approaching, and people still want to not even read the article. They don't even bother to read it before they start arguing about something they have no understanding of. They don't even know what veganism is. It's an ethical position. It's not a diet. It's not about meat. People seem to think that veganism is about eating meat. It's not. Dairy is a problem too. Consuming dairy products, consuming egg products, they're all products of violence, but they're all contributing to climate change in one way or another. And don't even go with the grass-fed business. Have a look at, I'm going to post an article about the grass-fed cow situation is just as bad. In fact, it's worse. So let's, stop making excuses. We really, really don't need to do this anymore. Can't we evolve and stop using 99.99% of the planet's population as things? I mean, if an alien came down here and saw the way we were treating other species on the planet, hopefully they'd be absolutely horrified. Sometimes I wish they would come down and sort of like, and click us into line. Jesus. And I was once a non-vegan, so I'm not in any position to be passing judgment on anybody, but I get really, really upset when I see people arguing against facts about climate change and animal agriculture. I mean, we need to snap out of that. What the hell are we doing? Why on earth are we arguing about this? Why can't we just, accept some science, right? And act on it. And the way to act on it is to stop consuming animal products and be vegan. And I'd prefer people be vegan for the right reasons, which is because we don't need to exploit and enslave and kill these other sentient animals, just like the dogs and cats whom we love. They're all like the dogs and cats whom we love, and even the ones that don't register the usual emotions that we're used to, like aquatic animals, so fucking what? They're still sentient. They don't have to be like us for us to care about them and for us to not exploit them. They don't have to be like us. This whole otherization thing has got our species into a terrible fix, and here we are on the brink of extinction. We're otherizing other human beings. We're imperializing, the imperialist wars all over the place, killing brown people left and right. Domestically in the United States, 3 black people every day killed by the state with impunity, and overseas killing millions of brown people for resources and hegemony. And that's probably not going to get any better, because as climate change, that's another reason to be vegan. Because as climate change worsens, there's going to be more and more climate refugees, which is going to mean that white people are going to want to secure their borders, even though we in the West are the problem. Anyway, I have to round this up, so I hope that you'll be vegan, and please excuse this rant, but it was well and truly overdue. My name's Trish Roberts. Thanks very much for watching. Bye for now.